Our final session today on the track. Up next, we will be featuring a conversation in youth. As I'm sure you all know, we have been looking to really amplify the voices of those newer, not just to the industry, but to the workforce. So today we're featuring a panel of youth on a wonderful topic of career track to manufacturing pipeline. So I'd like first to bring to the stage the moderator for the session, Kat Ermant. And Kat, you can turn your mic and video on, and I will yield the floor to you as I send your panelists up.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Well, welcome to the panel. I'm waiting for the other panelists to join. I'm going to share my screen real quick. So today I'm going to be speaking with Anne, Rachael, and Christina about their career journeys. They're all recent grads. I graduated college about 6 years ago, so my experiences are a little bit more removed than theirs. So I'm really looking forward to hearing some of the stories that they're telling. I'm just going to go ahead and hold on. All right. So my background actually is in fine arts. I graduated in 2016 from Purchase College. I got into 3D printing and additive accidentally because I found that 3D printing is my favorite sculpture medium. And then I started getting really into industrial design programs and had a lot of mentors that kind of got me to where I am now, which is running the 3D printing space at Peloton. And so now I'm really involved in the women in 3D printing world, and I'm really passionate about highlighting women's voices in this field. So, Anne, do you want to introduce yourself? Oh, where is she? Looks like some technical troubles. Rachael.
Hi, yes, I can go first then. My name is Rachael Enfield. I graduated from UMass Amherst with a degree in food science and a minor in computer science. I work now at Markforged, a 3D printing company based in Watertown, Massachusetts, as the materials lab technician. So I manage the lab, I perform experiments, I print parts, and my passions include 3D printing, food, and 3D printing food.
Thanks, Rachael. Christina?
Hello, I'm Christina Paris. I'm a design engineer at Pratt & Whitney in their engineering development rotation program. I graduated from Georgia Tech with a bachelor's and master's in mechanical engineering. And I really like that 3D printing makes new designs possible and that there are so many amazing women in the industry.
Thanks. And I'm not seeing Anne, so maybe I'll just do a quick introduction for her, unless she's able to hop on. Let me see. That's the thing about all these virtual conversations. You never know who's going to have technical difficulties. So she's just resetting her computer, it looks like, or rejoining the talk. So Anne graduated from last May from WPI with her bachelor and master's in biomedical engineering. She's now a simulation development engineer at Boston Children's Hospital, 3D printing patient-specific anatomic models and designing surgical training tools. She really likes the field she's in because she gets to use 3D printing to create solutions that have a real impact on humans. Really well said. So while we're waiting for Anne to join, my first question, and this will be kind of more roundtable style, is how did you know that 3D printing was your direction? Because our directions are ever changing. For me, I studied art, and 3D printing is not really considered an art form, but I found a way into it through art. And for me, it was an accident by taking a class that I really enjoyed. It was just an elective, and I just fell into it. So I want to hear about you guys. What was the class that you took? What was the mentor that took you on? when did you first hear about 3D printing and try it out for yourselves?
I can go first. So I first worked with 3D printers back in high school. Our library had one 3D printer. It was one of the Maker Gear ones. So you build half of it yourself. And I thought it was really cool. So I started working with it like a little bit. Part of my senior year, we had to do internships where I got the opportunity to set up a makerspace for LaSalle College in Newton. Then once I'd done that and worked with 3D printers, I went into college in my freshman year. First month, I walked into the makerspace that we had at UMass Amherst, and I was like, "Hey, I heard you had 3D printers. Can I see them? I've worked with them before." And the supervisor said, "Do you want a job?" So I got kind of thrown in based off of my interest and already kind of building desire to be part of the 3D printing world. From there, I decided I also wanted to 3D print food that same year, and I got the opportunity to work with a professor who was interested in 3D printing food. So I just kind of decided my career track based off of the fact that I really like 3D printing, and I've been doing it ever since. Anytime I have an opportunity to.
Right on.
Yeah, for me, my first exposure to 3D printing was through First Robotics. My team actually worked out of Oak Ridge's manufacturing demonstration facility, and they had a 3D printed car just downstairs from where we were working, and it was the coolest thing ever. Then when I started college, my introductory SolidWorks class had a project where we had to model and then 3D print some kind of little knickknack that was 2 to 4 pieces that fit together. And I really liked how it combined the artistic side of engineering with materials and all sorts of design considerations, and left you with something tangible, something like you designed it and then you can hold it and show other people. Throughout my college career, I really gravitated towards the design side of engineering in general. I got a hobbyist 3D printer after I got my undergraduate degree, and found the Women in 3D Printing community shortly thereafter.
Yeah, I love that we all kind of just saw something that caught our eye and we were like, wait, I think that's what I want to do. But then, there's so much more to it. There's not really like a 3D printing class, an additive major that you can take in an undergrad program. There's a few select ones in the country, but there's not many that are so focused on this new technology. But somehow we all found our way there. So what did you learn are the skills necessary to become an additive manufacturer, and where did you find them if not in classes?
I can start this one. I think like you just said, Kat, 3D printing is becoming more popular, but it's not quite mainstream. So a lot of people are learning about it through extracurriculars and electives and research, and maybe just a little bit of exposure in their core curriculum. A lot of the specialized programs are like certificate programs or master's programs where again, it's not someone's first step in engineering. So I think getting involved with research or other electives that are available to you as a student are great ways to get into it. I think it sets you apart if you come into the job search with previous relevant knowledge. For example, knowing the difference between different additive manufacturing processes, maybe working with a printer before. But aside from the specific technical skills, in general, being able to learn quickly and learn well is very valuable. And I think that's true in any company. And then also being able to work autonomously and take action. I think this is especially true in smaller companies where you might be one of the only people in your role. And so there's a lot of accountability with that. And again, it makes you stand out, and it makes you a reliable, or someone that the employer will see as reliable and be excited about hiring.
That's really, really powerful insight, I think.
Yeah, so I think skills you can acquire anywhere if you're like, if that's something that you're working on. Oh, Anne's back. Welcome back. So I think that the skills that are like necessary for Christina had a really great skills that she talked about. Curiosity is like a huge thing. I know that when I got my job, a big part of it was my enthusiasm and my bias to action, which is a hard skill to kind of like acquire, but it's really, if you have the drive, you have the passion to to work with 3D printers, to work with anything, to be honest. Like if you can see a way that 3D printing can be part of the work that you're already doing, you can find, like, you'll be able to find ways to utilize 3D printers. I've also found that it's like having access to like maker spaces or like other places where you can just experiment with 3D printers is like a huge place where you can grow skills. Like I also know that like part of what I have done is like I've made costumes and stuff, I made masks, and I've learned a lot of the skills that I did working with like PLA or like Onyx, which is maker Markforged material. I learned through like online resources, like looking up how to, this is 3D printed in PLA, looking up how to sand it, this is 4 pieces that I joined together, how to like join it, how to paint it, how to make it not look like it's 3D printed, even though once you look closer, you're like, oh, that's really cool that it was 3D printed. Like you can learn skills in a lot of different areas.
Absolutely. And so glad that you're back. Sorry for the technical difficulties. I hope it's okay. I did your introduction. The question we're on now is, what skills do you feel are necessary to do what you do, and where can someone find them if not in a class?
That's a really awesome question. I am currently working in the medical space in a hospital. So we're doing some actually organic modeling using ZBrush, and we create molds to create silicone parts from those models that we're creating digitally. So ZBrush was something that I had very little exposure to in college. I took one pretty quick intro class, and that I have supplemented with a lot of online tutorials through YouTube, through consulting with experts in the field. I have some really talented coworkers as well. So reaching out to people that know how to do what you want to do is probably my best advice there.
So it sounds like we're all in agreement that the internet is kind of the encyclopedia of newer technologies, because there's not that much published information on these things, but we're here to learn, we're here to grow with the technology and develop it further. So if we can't learn these things in class and we can learn them on the internet, what can educators do on all levels, elementary, grade school, all the way to one-on-one mentors? What can educators do to help further that kind of experience?
I think a big part of that, of like, you know, teachers in general, exploring 3D printing is really fostering interest in it. So like if you can have people like have kids apply what they like, you'll be able to find, I brought a bunch of props just in case, but like things like this was all printed as one piece. If like a kid finds this really cool, adults find this really cool, like one piece that like you can really explore your own interests in 3D printing, because you can make anything that you can imagine, then you can really apply everything. I also think it's really important to make sure that people know that there's access to these types of things. Like again, maker spaces at colleges, like invaluable. Like I I think that that is a really huge part of like where you're going to find resources, because people who work there will know information. People who go there will have more information. Like Anne said, which is, I really want to echo that point. Having coworkers or having people like mentors, people around you that know it, that's like the best resource that you can find.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the topic of workplace, actually, do you feel, I guess, we all come from different backgrounds. I'm in a very product development corporate setting right now, but and I'm working with a lot of designers and engineers. While we're all doing different things, we're kind of in the same environments. Do you feel like your workplace environment has a big impact on the experiences that you develop? And do you feel like your education has kind of primed you for it?
I think that this is my first job out of college. I just graduated in May. And I think that while I didn't necessarily learn all of the skills that I needed to do my job in college, I definitely developed a learning mindset. So I kind of came in, hit the ground running, and very similar to Rachael, I was just excited to learn as much as possible. And I think that is really valuable going into the workforce, because you're never going to know everything that you need to know to do your job. But there are always ways to learn those things. I think that in that regard, having experienced people on the team is really, that makes or breaks.
For sure. Christina, do you have any thoughts? Because you come from a very mechanical engineering background, and your workplace is right along those lines, right?
Right. I think for me it really helped, or I guess the education really helped with the technical foundations that go into the types of problems that I look at. As a design engineer, I'm looking at if the smallest changes affect the overall design and still meet specifications. I think the other valuable part is getting a broad system level overview of everything that I'm working on, because I'm working on a fighter jet engine. It's a super complex thing, and also very probably one of the most important components of that aircraft. So it's very important to have that system level understanding, or at least know who to ask the right questions to. I feel like that's something where, as a student, you're trained like for that mindset, for those problem solving skills. But I think actually going out and asking people for help, or relying on a lot of outside research, I think that's something that comes if you're involved in research or a longer term project or senior design. So again, I think that's a valuable experience for students if they have those opportunities.
I have also found, Christina had a really good point, especially about resources. I have found that this is something that I kind of wanted to talk about, is that like being able to utilize your resources is really important. I got diagnosed with ADHD when I was a junior in college, and I got some very helpful resources from the school assisting me with things that I like needed help with. Now I'm at a company where a lot of people have similar experiences to me. So like they're very understanding of the things that I need assistance with, or like the things that I maybe will have like will be able to do better. Like I have assistance when I'm like writing up plans for actual like test plans, which I find extremely helpful, because that's something that I lack. And having the resources and having my coworkers who are understanding and really has been very helpful for my working experience.
Yeah. There's so many levels of diversity and inclusion in these kind of things, because On one hand, we are all women in the space. On the other hand, we are all individuals in the space that have our own challenges that we're overcoming and our own backgrounds and experiences. And so for me, if I'm someone with a fine arts degree and I go into an engineering job, I'm going to have that imposter syndrome and feel like I'm lacking an engineering degree or engineering background. And while some people may have that, they may be, more attuned to certain aspects of 3D printing and additive. But I love what you were saying about utilizing resources. So, professors and educators and mentors, they can lay out all the resources, but really it's up to us to have that action for bias and to, encourage ourselves, be very self-motivated to take those things on. And do you feel like you really took advantage of everything that you could in college when it came to like finding you the job that you're at now?
I think I didn't realize until later on, like senior year, when I started to do my job search, I started to realize that all the courses that I was taking weren't necessarily, obviously you're gaining knowledge in them, but you can also gain skills. And I had a professor that made a comment along the lines of like, your entire undergraduate degree is really just filling your toolbox to be able to take skills and background in the areas that you're interested in towards your future career. And I think that if I had known that a little earlier, I would have done more independent studies in certain areas that I wanted to explore a little bit more, or found ways to fill certain, I think a lot of times the requirements and the course sheets that you have when you have to check all of the boxes to achieve your major, sometimes that can be a little restricting. And I think if you're willing to ask the questions and pursue what you're passionate about and get to that end goal, the resources and the people are always there.
Yeah, totally.
Classes like summers and winters, because I just really wanted to take classes that I was interested in, and that wouldn't necessarily seem on the outside like they have merit, really can, as long as, exactly like what Anne said, you're filling your toolbox, as long as you can find the skills from these different classes. Like I took comparative lit classes because I just really enjoyed the professor, and I really feel like I gained a lot of analysis insights from these classes that I took, just maybe for fun, but as long as you're willing to like put in the effort and you want to learn from it, you can find resources and skills anywhere.
Absolutely.
I'll also add that that it's not just classes, it's also clubs, and if there are workshops available on campus. I know mine had a lot of workshops through the maker spaces on campus, but then also there are self-paced courses online, like through Coursera and LinkedIn Learning and YouTube, where you can just do stuff at your leisure, might get a certificate for it, might not, but it's still helping you out. And then finally, oh my gosh, I lost it. Oh, then a lot of tools and software packages have student editions where you might have access to it either as a student or for a period of time after you graduate. And that's another avenue you could learn on your own or possibly use it for your classes.
And do you feel like the certificate that you get after some of these courses is kind of irreplaceable in that sense of like, you get a degree, you move on into the job world? Or do you feel like what's more important is the experiences, maybe the people you meet along the way? What do you think is, what has been the biggest influence for you personally as you went through all these extracurriculars and developed all these skill sets and put tools in your toolbox? What do you think impacted each of you the most?
I think for me it was the experience with the I guess self-paced or online classes. There was one that I did through a professor at Tech that was working towards SolidWorks certifications. So that's something where it was the course that he put together, but it was a certification that anyone could get. Then there are other ones where it was helping review for classes, or if I take the FE exam, prep for that. But I think the other experiences in grad school, I did a design competition where we were trying to solve the problem of lunar dust mitigation on the moon, and that was a really great experience to learn just how much detail goes into that specific area of research, and then also be able to follow a problem or a project from the beginning idea generation stages through the prototyping and proving that it works. And so I think having that sort of experience where you're learning relevant skills like long-term planning and teamwork, and again the technical thought that goes into putting together something complex like that was valuable. And it kind of happened organically, right? When you're in some kind of big engineering project, I think you know in the back of your mind that you're going to get that experience, but you don't know the exact steps that you're going to take. But as you go through, you meet your teammates and mentors, and you're not just working towards a common goal, but you're also learning from each other. And it's a very enriching experience.
Totally.
I can go next. I think the thing for me that really sticks the most is probably failures within projects or in networking in most, probably all aspects of life. But when you're working on a project, I found that especially ones that have like a creative aspect, there are so many different avenues that you can go down and so many areas for you to run into problems and have to pivot and iterate and over and over and over again. And it just makes the final product that much better. And it also makes you ask questions and get help and learn, and reach out to people you wouldn't normally, or send 10 cold emails and only get one back, or maybe get one back. So I think having to really be motivated and push forward in all of those situations is what keeps me going.
Rachel, do you have a thought?
I have thoughts all of the time. So something that Christina mentioned was like online classes and stuff, which as a great resource, the internet is a super great resource, but I've also found that I have a very hard time with online classes, and I do not do well learning from that. I do much better like, one-on-one, or like not even just one-on-one, but like, in person, like hands-on. There we go. That's the word I was looking for. I think that, a huge part of it, as you both talked about, is like teams and like working with other people, and you learn, as we've all keep on saying, learning from other people is like the best way to learn. So I want to go back to the question, but I have lost track of what it was, considering the fact that we're talking
Well,
about.
actually, I think that you did touch on it. The question was, what was the most valuable resource? And I think you really hit the nail on the head there with reaching out to people and finding what works for you also, I think is like absolutely phenomenal advice, because I have so many friends who didn't go to college or did and then dropped out, and they are super happy in their careers. They found something that works for them. And I think everyone's path is different.
One other thing that I wanted to say was that something that we had talked about before this was networking. And so great resource. I mean, I love networking.
In the chat, someone shouted out to the Women in 3D Printing Youth Mentor and Mentee program. So that's definitely one of those things.
absolutely love meeting new people. I love talking. I know it sounds weird, but small talk, like I'm all about it. No, I love like learning new things. So like that was, I think, another great resource thing is the people, like not only the people who are directly near you, but like people that you can reach out to that are in your network. It hasn't been, the most applicable just yet, but like in my food science career, I've had people reach out to me, be like, "Hey, have you heard about like any food science things that you could like help me, like hook me up with someone who's doing research in this, or who's writing stuff up on it?" Like that, it's a really great, and someone just posted in like general chat, which I'm also watching. Plus, you get to learn by listening to new people and what they're passionate about. Huge up on that one. I love hearing what people love to learn about, because that's honestly where you learn best too. Is when they're passionate about what they're saying. When you're passionate about it, that's when you're going to get like the most information.
I always like to say that community is like a Venn diagram where we have our story and they have their story. And when you come together and you network and you connect, you're having an overlap of a much more saturated area of stories. So shared experiences bring more vibrancy to our experiences. So I actually have one more question, and then we're going to jump into Q&A. We actually have a lot of questions. So my last question was going to be very women in 3D printing related. So I've actually only been in the, meetup networking world of women in 3D printing for about 4 years, but I know people who have been in here for longer. And some of you have mentioned that last year you attended TIPE, and that's kind of, what led you here today. And even, got jobs through that kind of networking. But I wanted to hear about what is it like to be a young woman in 3D printing back at school? Because when I was in school, women in 3D printing wasn't even a term, a phrase. It was just, I'm doing 3D printing in my classes, and I didn't have any competitors. I didn't have anyone I was competing against, male or female. So when I went into the workplace, I did see that competition, and I wasn't prepared for it. And I didn't even think that the industry was dominated one way or another. So if any of you have any, anecdotal kind of experiences that involve being, a woman in the space, in the additive manufacturing space, I'd love to hear that.
So as a lot of people, imposter syndrome kind of feels super real. Something that I tend to do is that I tend to almost overcompensate for making sure that people know that I have the knowledge about this kind of stuff, where I want to talk about the different technologies. So I'm like, yeah, let's talk about that photopolymerization instead of just like SLA or something. I have found that it sometimes it feels like it's in my head that it's hard, but at the same time that's imposter syndrome talking. Part of the reason why I had gotten my job at the makerspace back in college was because there were not that many other women who were interested in 3D printing, or at least did not seem to be interested, because I'm sure there are more that you just don't necessarily see because people are maybe a little bit shyer about their interests. Like I walked in and it's it's not like they were trying to fulfill a diversity quota, but I am someone who's passionate about it. I'm another woman. I have also found that people told me, actually, when I was working there, I worked at the help desk kind of thing. I would run, I'd do prints for people. They would go and talk to me before they would talk. If they were a woman, they would talk to me first, as opposed to potentially my male colleagues, because they seem to feel more at ease in the fact that they were interested in something that doesn't necessarily feel like they should be interested in it.
Totally.
Yeah, for me, sorry. For me, I feel like we've gone from a time when there were maybe one or two women in the engineering class to now, for me, it was about a quarter to a third of the class of my classes were women, and it's still the minority, but it's not like you're there and you're like, oh, I'm the only girl. It's like, oh, I've got a group of friends that I see in multiple classes. I feel like being from a school that is very focused on STEM in general, I think that attracts a lot of women more so than programs at I think more traditional universities. I was listening to a podcast recently for women in engineering, and they were the hosts were sharing their experiences, and they were just a couple years older than me, and they were like, yeah, I wouldn't have continued in engineering if I hadn't found so and so club where I found a community. And then for me, that was something where it was kind of a given. Like, of course there are women in my engineering classes, of course there are women engineers in my dorm and in my sorority. So like coming into the industry, it's also very promising to see so many female leaders at so many different companies. I think, and there have been scientific studies that have shown that for women in STEM, seeing other women in STEM makes them more likely to stick with it and be confident in themselves in it, even if there's still like gender stereotypes and that sort of thing. And I think that's I think a lot of organizations can impact the next gen in that regard. So going forward, I think, I think there's still things that you have to think of as a woman, but it's not like it's overall a positive experience, and again, great communities to be a part of.
I think just a small little note. I grew up, my mom is actually an engineering professor at a university, and she brought the 3D printers to the school, has incorporated it into tons of her classes. And I think that I started to notice that as well as I was going through school, seeing professors that either were in industry or had experience and were encouraging students to use this as an outlet really makes a difference. And I came to this conference last year and was blown away because every time I went onto one of the panels or the talks, it was just all of these super successful and inspiring women that had achieved all the things that I had always wanted to achieve. And they were always willing to answer questions and sort of direct me and give me input. So I think having the visibility and really seeing your professors, your mentors, your people that you want to be when you grow up, and having those be women really makes a difference.
Absolutely. And I just want to point out that you are all now on those panels that inspired you last year. So round of applause for you guys. Now you're out there inspiring others. And I think that's a really important thing to note for your accomplishments. As Rachael was mentioning with Imposter Syndrome, like you'll always doubt yourself, you'll always overcompensate, but at the end of the day, you're out there doing the dang thing, and you should be really proud. So let's jump right into some of the questions. I really like this question. So Kimberly Gibson from America Makes asks, have you been mentored and nurtured in your workplace? And I like the differentiation of that because I think as young women, we sometimes, have to differentiate what means mentorship and what means nurtureship. Whoever has any thoughts.
I can go into this one. I kind of touched on this earlier, but I definitely have been mentored and nurtured, and that's in areas of technical skills and then also in just how to live and be in a workplace, and especially a new workplace. I think that having or surrounding yourself with people that are excited about your success is invaluable, and I'm very fortunate to have that. And I think that making sure that you're asking the questions and not just sitting and kind of struggling through is really important to seek out mentorship, because you can have someone say, oh, well, I'd like to be your mentor, or I'd like to help you as you start to acclimate to this new workplace. But also being able to ask for that is really important too.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Rachel.
I just really want to quick say shout out to all my coworkers who have come here to to support me. I've got a couple in the chat, but like I feel like I've been really like, I know that because we're going to be running up on time soon. I wanted to say that like I feel like I've been really nurtured by my coworkers. My favorite part about working here is the people who I work with. I love the community that has been formed. I feel like I haven't been mentored, but honestly, my closest mentorship that I had was in school with the professor that I'm actually still working with, working on a paper to be submitted, or a manuscript, technically.
Yeah, having a support system both on a personal and professional level, I think, is very, very important. I think we might only have time for one more question, so I'm just going to scan through and see if anything's pretty relevant. Oh, this is actually a good one. There's some good ones in here, but someone anonymously just submitted, have you ever cold called or cold emailed someone in the industry? How did it go? Do you have any advice? With tomorrow being the job fair, I think that's a very important question to bring up as young folks who are just entering the field. And I remember you had some thoughts on this off screen before.
Yeah. I think that with cold emailing, it's really important to include what you are emailing for, and saying like, I would like to learn more about your team, or I would like to learn more about this position that I saw online, or I read your LinkedIn post and found it really interesting and would like to connect for a quick coffee chat.
Being direct.
Being direct, yes, yeah. That's definitely, because you could be 1 in 18 of the little notes attached to the LinkedIn connection request that say, hi, my name is Annie, and I would like to connect. But if you are direct and say why you want to connect, that seems to go a little bit further.
Totally. I think that applies no matter what stage of job search you are, because when I got my job at Peloton, I was on the hunt for about a month, cold emailing, cold applying to places, and you got to just put it out there. You never know when one's gonna, really land. We have 3 more minutes, and so here's a good question: would you recommend 3D printing classes to begin in high school? When I was in high school, we didn't have 3D printing, so I'd love to hear your guys' experience.
I can start on this one. I think it's a good way to get people interested in STEM and in 3D printing, and so I think it's helpful also because high school students are always willing to try new things, and it's also very accessible to students who might not necessarily be thinking about careers in STEM. And I know in robotics there were a lot of other women who were really excited about the engineering side, but really the vast majority of my friend group wasn't really into engineering, and it was something that I saw the opportunity to pursue on my own, as well as other activities. And I think just making it, I think it's a great opportunity if it's accessible to other students, because you can, again, like Rachel was showing those cool things that she's printed, and that's exciting. I mean, who doesn't like to make something? It's a really fun thing. It's fun and it gets people involved in STEM. That's all you need.
Definitely. Well, we are right up on time. Thank you to everyone who asked great questions. Thank you to you 3 for all your great insight. I wish I had this kind of stuff when I was straight out of school, but I don't think that anyone's ever too old to learn something new or be influenced. And I hope that there are some teachers and educators in this panel, in this audience, to learn something from the perspective of your mentees.
Awesome. Wonderful presentation. I'm so glad to hear that you all learned so much from TIPE last year and that now you're here to be the inspiration at TIPE 2022. So the future looks good and it's all you. So we're really proud to have you as part of the industry and as part of TIPE this year. Thank you all so much for sharing your experiences. And with that, you are actually our final presentation on the people track at TIPE 2022. I'd like to invite everyone to the main stage now. We'll be having a closing chat with the track leaders. We'd like to thank everyone for coming. There will be a virtual career fair tomorrow. Anyone looking for next opportunities in 3D printing, we've got times with hiring managers in the EMEA and North American regions. Next to 3D is hiring in both. Quick plug. And thank you, of course, so much to all of our sponsors. These are the companies that you will see tomorrow at the virtual career fair if you join us then. And stay safe, stay healthy, take care of each other, be kind, be well. Come back to TIPE 2023. We'll see you there and we'll see you on the main stage soon. Thank you again.
Thank you so much.